Okay, we're up to the Mishnah on Nun Beis Amid Beis. Nun Beis Amid Beis. And this is an idea we've been exposed to throughout the Masechta. We've seen it more than once. Oibid kichavim mivadel oivoidis kichavim b'shaloi b'shal chaveiroi. Guys, remember the Ma'aseh with Rolosa Kapar, right? He forced the guy to go ahead and mevatel that other Avodah Zorah. We learned out three things, and one of the things we learned out that he can mevatel Avodah Zorah Shechavera. That was the Ma'aseh with David HaMelech. David had Itai Agisi, right? Itai the Gathian. He would go ahead and he would be mevatel Avodah Zorah. So this is a concept we've been exposed to. Yisrael ein mevatel Avodah Kichavim shalai v'kichavim. He can't be mevatel. Yisrael cannot be mevatel the Avodah Kichavim. He's not able to. He's not able to mevatel it, right? Rashi, the Oivik Kechavim Poisel Elahu Yalfinon. Rashi says we learned that the goy could passel, meaning mevatel is avodah zarah. He can passel his deity. V'lo Yisrael, the kol shkein the Yisrael ain't mevatel avodah zarah the Yisrael. They ain't lebetelo ilamis. The son baseisik. We saw yesterday the son baseisik like Rabbi Akiva, right? That what you have to. It's asa. It's asa forever. You can't be mevatel if the son baseisik. So that's it. Back in the Mishnah, the ancillary parts of the Avodah Zarah get schlepped along with the Avodah Zarah itself. So you mevatel the Avodah Zarah, you mevatel that. However, bitul misham sheha, if you mevatel the mishamoshim mutarim, they will be mutar. He asura and he asura. Now, notice lashim misham sheha as opposed to takroivus, guys. Like the kli of the Avodah Zarah, you can be mevatel. Takroivus Avodah Zarah we saw yesterday, ain't no bittel, has no bittel. Okay, Masnilo Rebbe Reb Shimon Berei, it should be. He's Mashna Turat Reb Shimon, his son. So Rebbe is teaching his son Reb Shimon. Mivatel Avodas Kechavim Shaloi B'Shal Chaveroi. That's our Mishnah, right? He can mivatel his own, of course. Not only his own, even his friends. Amalei Rebbe. Shanas lanu b'yaldusach, right? You taught us in your youth. Yisrael. Not you didn't say shal chaveroi. You said a goy can mevatel the avodah zarah of Yisrael. Good, guys. Important. Again, so in other words, this is not what. Right now, you're saying he can be mevatel his avodah zarah and his friends, but the inference is, but not a Jew. And now he's saying, one second, when we were younger, you told us, even a Jew, that but a goy can be, that Yisrael could be mevatel. A goy can be mevatel shal Yisrael. For the Gemara, Yisrael mikom mevatla. Could Yisrael be mevatel? I v'sam b'seisa k'siv. It has to be put aside. It needs geniza. So l'chayra, what happened? The dialogue from when he was younger that you could be mevatel Yisrael, and later on in life that he couldn't. Amar Rav Hillel Braid Rav Valis, not a common name, says Rav Hillel, the son of Rav Valis, Leinitzricha sheyesh lo ba shutfis. The goy has a shutfis in it. So we're not dealing with a case of a goy being mevatel, a foreign Jew. We're speaking about a goy being mevatel, the avodah zarah of his and the yid that he's a partner with. Good? That's what we're speaking about. So here's the Gemara, guys. When Rebbe was young, he learned that what? The goy could be mevatel his part and the Jew's part. However, when he got older, he said he can only be mevatel his part, but not the Jew's part. So that's the mitzias of the case. And something changed in Rebbe from when he was younger to when he was older, which the Gemara was going to address right now. Bil Yaldusa my kasavar, that he said you could mevatel the shutfis, you can mevatel the yid. Ubiziknuso, and as you get older, my kasavar that you can't. Bil Yaldusa savar Yisrael adaita de'oivik kechavim palach. The Jew is not really serving the avodah zarah on his own means by himself. He's doing on the das of the guy. He has a shutfis, whatever his motivation. He's not really serving it as an elokus. He's serving it on the das of the guy. So therefore, you would think that what? Since he's serving on the das of the goy, once the goy is mevatel, included in that is the Jews, but Jews avoida of this quote unquote avodah zarah that he's not really serving, because he's only serving it like on the coattails of what? Of the goy. And therefore, since the goy is mevatel his own, he's mevatel the Jews part as well, because the Jew is only serving on his. That's what Rebbe held when he was younger, and that's what the son retorted to Rebbe. This is what you taught us, that you can mevatel Yisrael, shutfis, and that. Okay, that's when he was young. Ubiknusay savar Yisrael adaite de nafshi polach. You know what? The Jew is not serving on the Avodah Zorah, independent of the Avodah Zorah, totally independent of Avodah Zorah. He himself is serving it. If he himself is serving it, then what? Ki mevatel v'kechavim de nafshe. He can mevatel his nefesh, his part. Yisrael loin bottle. However, the Yisrael cannot be mevatel. Okay, that's what you held when you were. That's the difference in younger and older. What the kivun of the Jew was the mechavim for the goy, was mechavim for the avodah zarah. That's the difference. Ikedemasni law, those who this dialogue not on the ratio of the Mishnah, but a seifa. Yisrael einu mevatel avodah chavim shalavid kechavim. A Jew can't be mevatel the avodah zarah of a goy. Says the Gemara Pshita. That's obvious. How could a Jew be mevatel a goy's avodah zarah? So on that, Amar le Rav Hillel, Breid Rav Alis, Amid Aleph, le nitzrecha ella sheyesh lo b'shutfis. So what's the chiddush? The chiddush is the Jew has a shutfis. You might think the Jew could be mevatel the goy. Kamash v'lon Yisrael hu delay mevatel doivi kechavim, avloivi kechavim the nafshei mevatel. So you have a shutfis between a yid and a goy. The chiddush, you're telling me that the Jew can't be mevatel his own chelek, but he can be mevatel, but the goy can be mevatel his chelek. That's the chiddush of Rav Hillel B'rei Rav Alis. That the goy can be mevatel his chelek, but the yid cannot be mevatel his own chelek. He can't be mevatel it. So the bottom line is, fellas, what does it help if the goy is mevatel his chelek if the Jew is not mevatel his? It's the lasa. Right? You have over here, you have an avodah zarah. So what's the chiddush? You're telling me where you have a shutfis of a yid and a goy, the goy can be mevatel his chelek, but the Jew can't be mevatel his chelek. So if the Jew can't be mevatel his chelek, as we say in Spanish, does bleibt an avodah zarah, right? What does it help? It's still an avodah zarah at the end of the day. You got it? Heshi, you got it? It's still an avodah zarah. It's good the guy takes off his part. Who cares?
Yeah, yes and no. You know, America jurisprudence, was that the word? You would have they can't be about because they each own 100% of the item. But if let's say the guy owns the head of the avodah zarah and the yid owns the arm, so I could use the head to put my books on.
Okay, Hesh, you're saying very good. You're saying very good. So let's bring in the Ramban. You mechavim Baruch Hashem, you mechavim to a Ramban. Let's see the Ramban. Okay, here's the Ramban. The Ramban makshe. Ma moyel bittul hagoy. What does the bittul of the goy help? It's still asa because it's chelik of Yisrael. Now, guys, we can go ahead and maybe make this a breira sugya, right? You divide it up and you say retroactively it's clear who the chelik of the yid was and the chelik of the goy was. And therefore, the chelik of the goy would be permitted and the chelik of the Jew would not be. In other words, that's a classic breira, right? What does breira do? It says retroactively, it's clear this was the goy's chelik and this was the Jew's chelik. So that would be an answer. That would be a potential answer with the concept of breira to perhaps think that the Jew's chelik would be asa, but the goy's chelik would be muta. Now, why does that not work? On that, this is paraphrased of the Ramban. Ve'ein loymar shekamash malon she'im yachloku b'dava. If you divide it up, because he was mevatel it. You know why you can't say this? Because we paskin should be surah deraisa ain breira. When it comes to this deraisa, we don't say breira. And therefore, we don't say what you receive now was the goy's previously that he'd been mevatel. So says the Ramban, Kasha. What does it help that the goy's chelik is bittul if what the Jew's chelik still aser, and you can't say breira. Because of oid, she'ein loyma shenafkamina leinyan shekishi machru davazeh legoy acher. When you go ahead and sell it to another guy, hadamim sheikablu hagoy lechalko yemutarim, and the other. But let's say he receives $100, so you say 50 is his and 50 you throw away. Shedemei haguf af belay bittul mutarim. That would be mutter even without bittul. Shekaimelon shedemei avodah zarah shebiyad goy mutarim hein. So in other words, you don't need bittul for him to have anah. So that's not a possible teretz. V'haraban yashev shenafkamina. Here's the Ramban. What's the nafkamina? Let me get this a little higher, if I can. I may have to make it small. Okay. There it is. V'haraban yashev shehanafkamina hi ba'oifin sheyedua heichen hu chelko shel Yisrael. You know where the chelik of the Yisrael is. This is what Heshi said. Biyad oy beregel. Oy keshu murkiv mikesef and a. So let's say it's blended of what? Gold and bronze, silver and bronze. V'yedua shechelik shel kesef lezeh v'nechoshes lezeh. U'ba'oifin zeh kishebitel agoy chelkoi mutter bahana. So the Ramban says this. Ramban gives us a heikat timtza, right? Where would this work? Right? Where would this work? Right? Where would it work? If you know the part of which part was to the yid and which part was to the guy, like Heshi said, in the head or the foot, or a variant of that would be it's two precious metals. One precious metal was the chelik of the guy, one was the yid, and therefore the guy, let's say it was the silver part, the head, whatever it is, that would be the Ramban's way of dealing with a question that was bothering me. You know, the question bothered me, like, what does it help? It's still asa, right? It doesn't make a difference. And there's those who say Rav Hillel, the son of Rav Alis, to a brisa, on a brisa. That statement was the brisa. Rav Shimon Menashe Oiner, avodas kechavim shel Yisrael, ein la b'teila ilamis. Okay, it says the Yisrael, the avodas of a Jew. That's it. There's no b'teila ilamis. We're also familiar with that. It's also you got to throw in the Yam Melach. My ilamis. What did he mean by ilamis? So Amar Rav Hillel Breder Rav Alis. Again, this is the application of this individual. It's a case where there's a shutfis there. The Kamash Malon, the Yisrael adaited in Nafshi Palach. And that the Yisrael, when he serves the Avodah Zorah, he serves it with his own mindset, and it's not totally in the das of the goy. Then you have a shutfis over here. And you know what? Ein b'teilo olam is that's it. Because we say that he's not, has nothing to do with the guy. This is similar to the Rebbe's, what he held b'ziknusai. That when he serves it, and therefore what? Ain't a betela lamis, there's no betela. Says the Mishnah. Ketlim mevatla. How does the guy go ahead and be mevatl it? So kata roish azna. Let's say he cut off the ear, part of the ear. Roish chayma, the tip of his nose. Roish etzbo, or part of its finger, the tip of its finger. Or piksa. Let's say he dented it. In other words, he pushed it in, but it didn't want to go ahead and detract from the amount of the whatever it was made of, the amount of the wood, the amount of the silver, of the gold, whatever it was made of, he pushed it in, but it still retains its volume. Afa pishlei chisra, as I just mentioned, bitla, that act itself goes ahead as an act of bittul. He's not going to go ahead and physically go ahead and mar the avodah zarah. Marring the avodah zarah is tantamount to bittul. Marring the avodah zarah is tantamount to bittul. However, roik bifanecha, if he spits in front of it, or hishtim bifanecha, or he goes to the bathroom in front of it, gerara, or if he goes ahead and drags it, or zarek esat soya, or even throws soya, he throws feces at it, harizu ain't a betela. Believe it or not, as we said yesterday, he was having a bad day. But guys, in this case, what didn't he do? He did make a physical change in the avodah zarah. He did a derogatory act. But he didn't go ahead and physically go ahead and deface the avodah zarah. Since he didn't deface it, this is not an act of bittul. Okay. What about this case? Mechara, if he sold the avodah zarah, or mishkina, or he used it as a mashkin to secure a loan. Rebbe Omer, bittul. That's an act of bittul, selling it or using it as a mashkin is an act of bittul. The chachamim moimrim le bittul, and the chachamim say no. In fact, it's not. The chachamim say in fact it's not bittul. Says the Gemara. Kilei chisra b'may bitla. Kilei chisra, if he didn't go ahead and nem take away from the avodah zarah, how can he mevatel it? With what? Some Rebbe say, shepachsa b'fanecha, right? Let's say he goes ahead and he went ahead and pushed it in. He pushed it in. So even though what's the act? The act of pushing it in is marring the Avodah Zarah. Rakak b'faneha, the hishlam b'faneha. The Mishnah said if he spit in front of it or he went to the bathroom in front of it, minani mili. It seems interesting that the Gemara, we would think, if you'd ask me, ask the layman on the street, you would think this is an act of bittul. In other words, given our druthers, right? If he goes ahead and spits at it or urinates in front of it, I'd ask both of you on the screen. You'd agree, correct? So now the Gemara is finding a source. Why not? Because it's not. It's not bittul. So the Gemara is looking for a source. Why not? Why is it not bittul? So the Gemara brings a pasuk from Chizkiah, and this is describing the guy's reaction to a famine that occurred at the time of Chizkiyahu. Damakra v'hoya ki yirav. It was then when they were what? They were hungry. V'hiskatzef v'kilel, and they got angry. V'kilel b'malkoi ubeloikov, and they went ahead and they cursed the melech and the king. Upana lamaila, and they turn upwards to go ahead and chas v'shalom to go ahead and turn to Rebbeinu Shalom. Uksiv basrei ve'el eretz yabit, and they look to the ground. V'hinei tzara v'chashecha, right? So what do you see? That they come back to the ground. They come back to the Avodah Zarah. So we see the fact that they're makal the Avodah Zarah. They curse it, right? The afagav the kila malkoi ve'elikav upana lamaila. Nonetheless, el eretz yabit. They come back to earth. So the same thing over here. Even though he's doing it, as long as they're not marring the Avodah Zarah physically, they're coming back to it, and therefore it's not urinating or spitting is not an act of bittul. We said machra mishkana, Rabbi oim bittul the chumsei bittul. Okay, this is important, guys. Machra, you sell it, oim mishkana, or you go ahead and make it as a mashkin. Says Rabbi, that is an act of bittul. Says the Chachamim, it's not an act of bittul. Seiri Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Yerbi bar Abba Rav. Chad Amar Machloikis Bitzayrif Oivekichavim. Who are you selling it to? Who are you giving it as a mashkin to? You're giving it to what? A tzayrif. That's a person who works in metals. He melts down metals, right? He melts down metals. So when is the machloikis? If you sell it to this fellow, Aval Bitzayrif Yisrael Divya Kol Bittul. If you would sell it to a tzayrif Yisrael, even Rebbe would, even the Chachamim would say it's an act of bittul. Why? Because if he's selling it to him, what's he stating? He knows what's this guy going to do to it. He's going to go ahead and melt it down. Buy another guy, maybe he's going to go ahead and use it as a avodah zarah himself, or sell it to somebody else. But if it's a Jew he's selling it to, and the Jew's job is to melt metal, so obviously that act itself is an act of bittul because he knows where this is going to end up. So even the Chachamim who say loy bittul, says Reb Zera, Ziri, in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, and so forth, would agree that it's an act of bittul. Okay, now, and one says that Tzarif Yisrael is the machloikis. You hear this? One says the machloikis is what? By Tzarif of the Chavim. The other one says it's machloikis by Tzarif Yisrael. Now, if the machloikis is by what? By Tzarif Yisrael, what does that mean? Iboyelu, the Tzarif Yisrael machloikis, even what Rebbe would be masking loy bittul. Okay, guys, we have two statements. The latter statement, the latter statement, if you sell it to a Jew, everyone holds that what? That's an act of bittul. Mashma is no machloikis. There's two ways to learn. What happens if he sells it to a tzoyrev guy? Two possibilities. Everyone's moida that it's not bittul because he's selling it to a guy, or there's a machloikis there as well. That's the question. Now it's clearly it's a machloikis what by selling it to a Jew. Question, is it a machloikis when you sell it to a guy or not? Do we say selling it to a guy is not bittul because the guy can go ahead and use it himself, or no? The fact that the fact that he melts the metal, that's what he's going to do, despite the fact that he's a guy. Yeah, it's.
We just had the case where the Jew was a partner together with a guy in the idol. So how can you say that if he sold it to a Jew, clearly he knows what's going to become of it? Just because he's a Jew doesn't mean he won't use it for Avodah Zarah.
Yeah, I guess that was the anomaly. That the Jew being a shutif with a Jew is the anomaly. That's not the norm. This guy is a Jew. Most Jews do not do Avodah Zarah, and he happens to be. This is his profession. It didn't say a regular Jew. You sold it. It's like giving.
It's got to be both a Jew who is a
right. Right.
Yeah.
So in addition, most Jews don't do Avodah Zarah. There he was a shutif, that's the anomaly, that's not the norm. Okay. Anyway, good point. So now, so what's the shaila, fellas? Again, Loitaman the Omar who says the machloikis is by a Jew, machloikis is by a Jew. No, there's no machloikis by a Jew, right? Machloikis, no, but machloikis is by a Jew. What's the din by a guy? Machloikis was definitely leibittel. That's the kasha. Toshma. The Amar Rebbe, Nirin devarai kishemachro lechavla. Rebbe said, guys, bittel. Rebbe said bittel. My words is where he sold it lechavla. Chavla means to literally to chayvel, to hit. So what do you mean hit that by desire? It means to destroy it. It means to destroy it. Machloik nirin devarai kishemachro lechavla. When you sold it for the purpose of destroying it. That's when I say bittel. V'divrei chaverai, and the words of my chaverim, who says loy bittel, shemoichro la'avda. We sold it what? For a guy to go ahead and serve it as an avodah zarah. Now, what does it mean, my lechabla, my la'ovda? What does it mean you sold it to destroy it and sold it to go ahead and serve it? Literally. Ilay melachabla, lechabla mamish. If you're going to say he sold it to destroy it, right? And la'ovda is la'ovda mamish, and to serve means to serve it, guys. My time of demand, I'm a bittel. If you served it, guys, if you're taking literally that he sold it to be served, why would anyone hold that's bittel? Right? Conversely, my time of demand, I'm a bittel. If he sold it to be destroyed, what's the reason that what the man says? Loy bittel. In other words, those are obvious. The destination would be able to go ahead and define what he meant to do. If he sold it as an other to serve, everyone should agree bittel, and not loy bittel. And if he served it to destroy, everyone should agree bittel. Okay, so obviously that's not what it means when Rebbe said nirin devarai and nirin chaverai. We can't learn bittel and we can't learn what. Obviously that way. So elalav lechavla. You know what lechavla means? Lemisha asid lechavla. It means that someone who will destroy it. Umanu, who's that? Who will destroy it? Tzaref Yisrael. That's a Jewish, a guy who's a Jew who melt down metal. La'ovid lemisha asid la'ovda, and to serve it to what? A guy who could worship it. We're speaking about it. Tzaref Ovid Kechavim. Now, what did Rebbe say? Nirin devarai over here, and nirin chaverai over there. Obviously, they're arguing in both venues. Guys, when Rebbe said my words in venue A and my Chum's words in venue B, it must be they argue in both venues. So we can answer the kasha. What was the kasha? The Loitaman the Amma who says that machloikis is by selling it to a guy, a yid. What's the din by a guy? Who adin? They argue there as well. So they argue across the board. They argue no matter who they sell it to. Rebbe is going to say bittel, and the Chachamim say loy bittel. That's what the Gemara wants to say right now. Shma mina bein bezeh machloikis in both venues, right? On that the Gemara says loy. Hachi kamar. Here's the way you read it. Amar Rebbe nirin devarai lechaverai kishemachro lechavla. Right. My words that I say bittel, my chaverim, right? They nirin lechaverai. It means that they agree. Since it's being sold for what? To a Jew, they agree that what? It's bittel. Umanu, who they agree to? Tzaref Yisrael. Sha'av chaverai like nechlot goalai elikishemachro la'ovda. The whole machloikus is when they sell it to a guy. Aval lechavla moideli. But by chavla, they're moided to me. So in other words, you have no hechrich over here. They would agree that if you sell it, again, you wanted to say the following: if they argue like the opinion that they argue by Jew, they argue by two, by guy as well. We're turning it around. Over here, Rebbe says, near my words to the Chachamim, meaning they agree. When I said my words, when did I say my words? When you sell it to what? A guy, a Jew. They agree when you sell it to a Jew that it's no. Nirin devarai lechaverai kishamach lechavla. I messed it up. Yeah, you sold it. Yeah, excuse me. No, I said it right. You're selling it to a Jew. What's the Jew going to do with it? What's his profession? He's going to melt it down. My words that I say bittel, by where? By Goy. They admit by Jew that that's an act of bittul, because the Jew is definitely going to destroy it. Where do they argue? They argue by you sell it to a Goy, but not that they argue in both venues. Okay. Mesiveh. Now you just said, guys, what did you just say? Guys, before we begin, what's the premise? That the Chacham agree with Rebbe, if you sell it to a Jew, that's an act of bittul. Good? If you're selling to a Jew, it's a Tzoref Yisrael, it's an act of bittul. We're going to question that. Mesiveh. Halakeach grutois min oivdei kechavim. You buy scraps of metal. You're buying, the guys who walk around with the I don't know if they had in Philadelphia, guys who go around with push carts and they take all metal garbage and they bring it to, it's worth money. In New York, they used to have it before recycling, right? They go ahead because it's worth money. So this guy is buying scrap metal. And you know what happens? And the scrap metal, he finds a getchka. If he didn't give money yet, he did Mashicha, but we're not going to get into the Mashicha, the Kinyanim. Before it was finalized, because he didn't give money yet, then he finds it, he can go ahead and give it back. It doesn't belong to him. Yachzer. However, if he gave money already and he didn't act in Mashicha, then what does he have to do? He has to take that Avodah Zarah and throw it out. It belongs to him. We know that Avodah Zarah belonging to a Jew does not have bittul, and you have to throw it out. Now, if you're going to say there's a machloikis, right, B'tzaref Yisrael, that even the Chachamim say that it's not bittul, then it makes sense why you have to throw it into Yam HaMelech. Hamani Rabbanon. Guys, clearly this case, you can't be mevatel it. Why? Because it says openly you have to bring it to the Yam HaMelech. Now, who would that be? If you're telling me that they argue by selling it to a Jew, then it makes sense. This is the case of selling it to a Jew, and the Chachamim say loy bittul. Since loy bittul, you got to throw the Yam HaMelech. If you're going to say like Rabbi, that's bitzoyrif avodas kechav machloikis, that the machloikis is only by what? Selling it to a goy. Aval bitzoyrif Yisrael devriya kol bittul. But if you sell it to a Jew, tzoyrif, everyone agrees that what? It's going to be what? It's bittul hamani. What does the Brisa say, fellas? I got four. How about this? 4 eye contact. four eye contact. Guys, you end up with Avodah Zarah in your Rishus, and you're a Jew. You bought it from a guy. That's mamish tantamount to the case, right? A Jew buys an Avodah Zarah from a guy. Rebbe said in that case, everyone is maida that what? It's batal. What does it mean it's batal? The Jew can have enough from it. Yes? That's what it means. What did the Brisa just say? You bought scrap metal, you gave the guy money, you did an act of Mashicha. You know what you got to do with the Avodah Zarah that you find there? You got to throw in the Yam HaMelech. You got to throw in the Yam HaMelech. But 1 second, why? Why? Wasn't the guy mevatel it? Ella, it must be the machloikis is not only by machloikis is also by a yid, not like Rabbi just said. The machloikis, the kashan Rabbi, machloikis even when you sell to a yid that the chachamim hold loy bottle, and since loy bottle you can't have enough from it, you got to throw in the Yam HaMelech. On that, the Gemara answers shiny hasam. There's big difference. The adaite de grutois zavin. This is the way Rashi learns. When the guy sold it, what was he selling? He was selling scrap metal. He was unaware that there were baseball cards inside, right? He didn't realize he's selling the Avodah Zarah. Since he didn't realize he's selling the Avodah Zarah, he's not mevatel it. Guys, if he would sell the Avodah Zarah itself, not mixed in with a bunch of scrap metal, that act itself would be an act of bittul. Why is he selling his Avodah Zarah to a Jew who's going to melt it down? Ella, now you're telling me he sold a bunch of scrap metal and you happen to find Avodah Zarah inside of it. You know why it's not bittul? He never meant to sell it in the first place. He never meant to sell an Avodah Zarah. He meant to sell scrap metal. It happened to fall in there. Memele, if he's not bought, really, had he known about it, he'd be mevatel it, or he wouldn't have sold it. Either way. But now that he doesn't know about it, so there's no act of bittul. Therefore, the yid owns it. He has to throw it in the Yam HaMelech. Tan Rabbana. Loiva Aleha. Let's say he went ahead and he used what? He used it as a collateral to borrow money. He used it as a mashkin. A shenafula mapolis, or let's say you had Avodah Zorah and a wall collapsed on the Avodah Zorah. Oishen ganvul listim, or goyim stole it. Oishen nichu habaylim, v'holchem medina sayam. They left their getchka and they went overseas. So you have four cases: a case of mashkin, a case of mapolis, a case of goyim stealing it, ganavim stealing it, or what? Or he went overseas. In all these cases, right? In all these cases, in asidim lachser, milchemes Yeshua, if he's going to return like the milchama of Yeshua, we'll see what that means. Ain't a betela. It's not batal. So in all these cases, fellas, it's not batal. So you have a case of loiva, a case of a mapolis, a case of a ganif, and a case of the guy leaving. Now, why do you have to tell me all four cases? The Gemara is going to make a tzrichasa for all four cases. It says the Gemara tzricha. You got to tell me each case. Ditana loiva aleha midaloi zavna. I would say, listen, the fact that he retained ownership of it and just used it as a mashkin is a proof that what? He didn't want to be mevatel it. Right? The fact, guys, what did he do? What did he do? He kept it as a mashkin. If he wanted to mevatel it, he should have outright sold it. So Mamela there, it's not batal. Right there, it's not batal. Aval naflo lema polis midaloi kamafni la. When he didn't even try to extract it, he left it underneath the runes. Ema betuli batla. I would say that what? It's batal. Tzricha to tell me it's not batal. V'itana nafla mapilis. If you tell me case number 2, mishum de savar hamancha, it's lying there. In other words, I'm not concerned that someone else is going to take it. It's lying under I don't know how many rocks. I'll get around to it. That's why it's not batal. Because why? I know where it is. Avol ganvua listim, but when listim steal it, midaloi komahader basra. When he doesn't chase after them, I would say bitule batla. I'd say he's mevatel it. Tzricha tell me he's not. V'itana ganvua listim mishum desavar I oivet kechavim shakalei. If a guy stole it, miflach palachla, he's going to serve it. I Yisrael shakla, and if a Jew gets it, I know he buys it from the guy. I did the Mel Yakarim, it's expensive. Masminlah, he'll sell it loivet kechavim upalachla. So he doesn't chase after the listim, but if the listim are goyim, or if they're Jews even, if they sell it to Jews, again, he's not going to say avodah zarah because it'll be end up served as avodah zarah. If the Baal goes ahead, leaves it, when he doesn't take it along with him, batluha, I would say he's mevatlit. So tzricha, you have to tell me that what? That no, he is mevatlit. You have to tell me he's mevatlit. So we make it tzricha, right? What's case number 1, a loiva? What's the tzricha? He would have sold it. Case number 2, right? Mapolis, he's leaving it for later. Case number 3, list him. Why should I be take off the Shem Avodah Zarah? Let someone else be nana from it. Either Avodah Zarah or a guy himself, or a Jew who's going to sell it, and therefore what? It's going to end up in the hands of a guy. Or the last case, what? The last case where he left it, the case where he left it, maybe in the future he'll come back for it. So therefore it's not mevatel it. Now, the Gemara said a little side point. Imasidim lachser kemuchemes Yeshua. What does that have to do with the price of tea in China? Why are you throwing in Milchemes Yeshua? What's the reason for that? Okay, that's what the Gemara is concerned with now. Okay. Imasidim lachsar kil Milchemes Yeshua ena betela. Midi Milchemes Yeshua mahada hadar. Guys, Milchemes Yeshua is the war against the Zionumites. The Zionumites is like Sechaya Banishami. You're not supposed to let them live. They left Eretz Yisrael. They're not coming back. Yet you're telling me over here, what, they're coming back? In other words, it seems to be counterintuitive for what we know. We know, in fact, that what? They didn't come back. So what does that mean? If they're going to come back like Milchemes Yeshua, then what? It's not batal. What does that mean? Adarabah, they didn't come back. So here's the way you have to read it. Imasidim lachsar harihu kimilchemes Yeshua ve'ein la betela. If they're going to come back, it has a din of what? Of Milchemes Yeshua, ve'ein la betela. Melchemes Yeshua, the Avodah Zorah wasn't batal. Guys, as we're going to see in the Gemara, Melchemes Yeshua, it wasn't batal. Since it wasn't batal, so too if the guy wants to return. So in other words, it's 2 points. Guys, break it up. If he wants to return, then it's not batal. Why do you know about Melchemes Yeshua that it wasn't batal? Guys, look at me. It doesn't mean that if he doesn't want to return like Melchemes Yeshua, because that is not true. They didn't return. What it means is, just like Melchemes Yeshua, it's still Asr. Hu Adin, if he leaves the Avodah Zorah with the mindset of coming back, it's not Batal, it's Asr. That's what he means. Good? Now, what we have to focus on now is, and the Gemara will, what does it mean by Yeshua that it wasn't Batal? So we're comparing him leaving to Melchemes Yeshua and stating, just like Yeshua, it's Asa, so too if he plans on returning, it's going to be Asa. Why? Of course, it's not Batal. Okay? Says Gemara, Yeshua. So what did you gain by doing this? Just simply say, guys, if he wants to come back, then it's what are you mentioning like Yeshua that it's Asa? So the Gemara is going to say, we're going to learn out of halacha from there. Milsa agavurcha kamashvalan. By going ahead and saying that it's Tali in Yeshua, the Gemara is telling us a chiddush. What's the chiddush? Yisrael shezakaf levena lishtach v'eslaf. We had this earlier. If a yid goes ahead, he takes a rack, a brick, and he stands it up. And the purpose, remember, you have it with the egg, standing up the egg. He's standing up the rack. And what's the purpose of standing on the rack? To serve it, but he doesn't serve it. What happens? A guy beats him to the punch. What's the question? Ein adam oiser davar she'eino shaloi. How could the guy ask the brick? Since what? It doesn't belong to him. This is all, Baruch Hashem, this is all familiar territory. It's geschmack. We're building knowledge upon knowledge, which is the best. So now you go ahead, he sticks it up, and you want to know, in fact, what? Okay, so what happens? He does it. Uboy v'kichavim mishtachvela. Comes along a guy and bows down to it. So Asra, the guy asked it. Now, minalon the Asra. How do you know it's Asa? So on Rebbe Laza, kitchila shel Eretz Yisrael, we learn out it's the same as Eretz Yisrael. The same as Eretz Yisrael. Meaning, guys, just like listen, let's make it up, guys. Just like the brick belongs to the Jew and the guy can aser, so too that's what happened in Eretz Yisrael. Initially, it belonged to the Yid and the Goyim asid. Now, how did it initially belong to the Yid? HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave Avram Eretz Yisrael. And yet, we know that you have to go ahead and destroy all the Avodah Zorah, including the trees. Right? Why? How could the Goyim aser something that belongs to us, guys? You guys, you hear the Zushtal? Hesh? You know what the answer is? Outside. When the Jew stood up the brick, what was he showing? He was gully daite that he was happy with Avodah Zarah. Memela, by that action, if the guy comes along, the Gemara is going to say using his shlichus. We're going to see what that means. The guy is doing the shlichus of the Yid. The Yid wants to go ahead and serve it, so the guy served it for him. When the Jews were over the Cheder Egel, fellas, when they did the Cheder Egel, what were they showing? The megala that they liked Avodah Zarah, similar to standing up a brick. That's the halacha. That's the milsav agav urcha kamash malon you're learning from what? From the Melchemes Yeshua. That's the comparison. Fascinating comparison. Let's see the Gemara. Now, minolon the asra, Amar Rabbi Lazar kitchila sharetz Yisrael, Damar Achmana, Vashareim tisafun be'esh. Michti, 1 second. Yerusha hi lehem me'avoseyam. Eretz Yisrael is the Yerusha from Avram Avinu. Ve'ein adam oiseh davar she'eino shaloi. Lam d'shakayit. How is it possible for the goyim to asa something that doesn't belong to them? Ve'im mishum hanach demeikara, right? If imishum, what are you going to say? Right? You're going to imishum hanach demeikara. You'll say that maybe the trees are asa because of the trees that were there before Avram got Eretz Yisrael. It'd be tula ba'al masagilahu. Fellas, look at me. Look at me. This tree was around from before Avram Avinu. So who did it belong to? A guy. Get a guy to mimvatl it. You don't have to burn it. If it was around after Avram was given the land, Ein Adam Oised Davashen Shaloi. So Mimanav Shach, right? There was no need to go ahead and Ashereim Tissus from Be'esh. So there must be a reason. Now you know the reason. I told it to you already, right? There must be a reason. Okay, now continues the Gemara. Ela midipolchu Yisrael the Egel. When Klai Yisrael they went ahead and they served the Egel. Golia Datayu. What did they show? The Nichele Ba'ovis Kechavim. They were happy with Avodah Zorah, similar to the guy sticking up the brick. And then when the Oivdei Kechavim, again, the Eretz Yisrael was the source of the Zion Umas was the Makor of Avodah Zorah, the Rambam says. The Zion Umas were the Makor of Avodah Zorah in the world. Shlichusa did hu avdei. They were just doing what the Jew wanted them to do, to serve the Avodah Zorah. Hachanami Yisrael shezakaf levena gali daite de nichlei b'avodas kechavim. Therefore, v'chi asa avid kechavim u'palachlei shlichusa didei kavim. We're going to see what that means in a second. That they doing the shlichus. So that's the what. That's the chiddush of saying what. That's the chiddush of saying the milsavaga uchab of Mei Yeshua. That the chiddush is to teach us that a Jew sticks up a brick, and a guy serves its asa, similar to the trees in Eretz Yisrael that was served after Bnei Yisrael stood up a brick by going ahead and serving the egel and showing they're happy with Avodah Zorah. Fred the Gemara v'dilma be'egel hu denichalei b'midi achrin aloi. Maybe how could you say a brick? Maybe it's only an egel they served. Maybe they didn't serve any other Avodah Zorah. Maybe they were particular. On that, Amakra Eile Elehecha Yisrael. Elehecha, guys, is a lashon what? Gods. So what do you see? They weren't limiting it to an egel, right? They went ahead. They wanted many, many gods. Maybe only the gods, the idols that were there at the time. But anything from that time it was maybe only that time it was served. But anything served afterwards. So how could you prove that? How can you prove what was served and what wasn't? In other words, maybe only the trees that were served at the time of the egel. But anything before that, in other words, I have a period of time between the land given and the egel, maybe all those trees before that, maybe only trees afterwards. On that, we're saying, how can you prove it? So the Gemara is telling us a chiddush, milsim agavurcha kamash malan, that Eretz Yisrael, the reason why Ashereim tisfum be'esh is because of the cheder egel, which is really interesting because the Torah was given before the cheder egel. It's pretty interesting. Okay, now, how can a Jew do the shlichus of a guy? You stick up a brick, and the guy is doing the shlichus of the yid by serving it. How could a guy do the shlichus of yid? There's no shlichus by a guy. So this is a paraphrase. This is again from Michal Zilba Seifa, the second piece. It's a very, very nice piece, guys. No, I don't want the Ramban. Guys, you see Achronim Danu Kan? Good? You see Achronim? Okay. Achronim Danu Kan, Bidin Shlichus L'Nachri L'Chumra. Okay, let's start from over here. Ubeshavs and Shuvas Chasam Sefer, or Chayim Chelik Aleph Simen Pei Dalid, Kosav. Shal Korchoch, you have to say, Ein Kavanas HaGemara Kan, L'Din Shlichus Mamish. It's not that the Goy is doing the Shlichus of the Jew. That the guy who bows to the brick, he's doing the shlichus of the yid. It's not shaykh, I'm making you a shliach to bear down to the Avodah Zorah. It can't be. Anything that has to be done, the body of the person, there's no shaykh shlichus. For example, I can't make you a shliach to put on tefillin. It's a mitzvah in my body. I can't make you a shliach to go ahead physically and go ahead and put on tefillin. I can't send you lishtachavos to bow down. In other words, I'm supposed to go in the azara. I can't send you to do the azara. I say, Lenny, do me a favor. You be a little regel. I want to stay in Brooklyn. You be a little regel. You can't do that. I can't send you. I can't send you to put on tefillin. I can't send you to the regel. V'hu adin b'avodah zara Ein shayich shlichus bezeh. Says the Chassam Sofer beautifully. Agamar says he's doing the shlichus. It can't mean mamish shlichus. It makes no sense. Just like you can't put tefillin, you can't go to the azara. It's a mitzvah beguf. Ve'ein loima. Don't think to say shenase shluchay lesar ezeh ulahazmin ezel avodah zara. In other words, you're right. You're not doing my shlichus, but you can be mezimit for avodah. You can make it seen for avodah zara. You can prepare for avodah zara. Sheinad miyachal loima lechaveroi hegdish shekri avuroi ligvais. In other words, be magdish decree for it to be collected from, like the Ran says in Pesachim, I can make you a shliach to be mevatel my chametz. I can make you a shliach to go ahead and prepare this avodah zara. In other words, I'm not making you a shliach to serve it. I'm making you a shliach to give it a shem avodah zara. I'm making you a shliach to go ahead and sell the chametz. You can't do that either. Levatel the chametz. V'chutz mizeh hari Yisrael leitzivu legoy sheishtachvo v'yesar avuroi es alvena azu. The Jew did not command the guy to go ahead and bow down to this brick. He came himself. What does the Gemara say? The Gemara says, guys, look at the lashon of the Gemara. What's the lashon of the Gemara? Ki hodam Rabbi Yehuda Mara. Yisrael shezakav levena lishtachvis la. Uba oivit kechavim v'ishtachava la. And the guy came along and served it. You didn't send him. How can you say it's shlichus? Look at the lashon of the Gemara. You didn't send him. He came himself. Good. So that's what these are a few of the problems that Chassam Sofer has to say that this is not mamish shlichus, right? V'imkein ein shlucha lezeh el rak nichalei ba'avodah. He's happy that he did it, but he didn't send him to do it. Because of Chassam Sofer, guys, shebal korcha ein zeh mishum shlichus elohu netilas rishus be'alma leser es shaloi. When he stands up the brick, you know what he's doing? He's saying, anyone who comes along, I'm giving you rishus to bow down to it and make it aser. You're not doing you're not being mekayim my desire to go ahead and bow down to it. You are fulfilling my desire that it should be bowed down to. Guys, listen to my lashon. You're not saying that I'm happy that you're bowing down for me. I'm happy that it is being bowed down to. And I don't care you do it. I can't make you a shliach. What I can remove, guys, what can I remove? I can remove the fact that it's mine and ein adam oisa davar she'ein shaloi. It's like taking off the no trespassing sign. You can come in. I stood this up. Anyone who wants to come can serve it. That says the Chassam Sofer what it means. Elohu netilas rishus ba'alma leser es shaloi. V'hainu sheba'alma ein adam oisa davar she'ein shaloi. We say the lashon all over. A person can ask for something that doesn't belong to him. V'kan amra the Gemara. What's the lashon of the Gemara here? Shekeshenoisein loy rishus adam oisa davar she'ein shaloi. When you give the Gemara's lashon, when you give rishus, a person could go ahead and ask for something that doesn't belong to him. So he wants the taina. The Gemara says, Adam when he gives him rishus, a person, why is he giving him rishus? Because that's the din of shlichus. I'm just looking. Okay, so I think Baruch Hashem, we did a nice job on this. We have that Yisoid, we have the Yisoid that it can't be shlichus, the Yisoid of the Chassam Sofer. But what does it mean? Guys, he's removing the Ein Shaloi. Guys, Ein Adam Oisad Davar She'ein Shaloi. He's removing the Ein Shaloi. Nichale. He's nicha that what he does it. He's removing that as an impediment. It's not an impediment that I own it. It's not an impediment that I own it. I think that's pshat. Okay, very good.